Hello, welcome to the OnlyFinance podcast. I am your guest host today, Audrey Kanata from the Digital Growth Institute. And with me today is Minvo, owner of Verus Financial Group and F45, where we met.
Yes. Yeah. Hi. How are you?
Hi. Good. So we've known each other for what, 3 years?
Yeah.
More than 3 years now.
Yeah.
Strictly a gym friendship, relationship.
Yeah.
Fist bumping.
Yeah.
Complaining about the workouts, high fives.
Yeah.
But today we're going to kind of do a little bit of a 180 and talk about finances, specifically women post-divorced, widowed, who are finding themselves financially independent for possibly the first time in their lives.
Yeah. It happens a lot. Obviously, half marriages end in divorce. So.
Yes, and I saw a statistic on McKinsey. The research came out that of affluent households, two-thirds of those men make the primary financial decisions. And another statistic, and I can't remember where this is from, but in the first year post-divorce, women's household income drops anywhere from 20 to 40%. So throwing those numbers around there, I mean, it's no wonder why a lot of women find themselves in a little bit of a sticky situation. I know it's a subject that's close to me, something that I've been through recently. I'm on year 4 from divorce. And you know this, men, I'm just now kind of getting on my feet.
Right.
It's a lot to go through for many reasons, right?
Right. There's lots of things to consider, when you get divorced. I think the first thing is just taking a step back. I think everyone wants to kind of rush in and kind of fix things and look at things, but really just take a step back and take stock.
Yeah.
Where are we, right? One of my old bosses used to say, whether you love the score or hate the score, you got to check the score. And I hated that. I hated that,
That's
right?
like my bank account. I don't want to see it.
Yeah, you got to check the score, right?
Right.
Just to know where you're at so you can formulate a game plan, right? So a lot of people, the first thing they go is, I don't really want to check the score. I know the score is bad.
Yep.
Let me just try to turn away and don't look at it, right?
That's me.
But you got to check the score, right? You got to get started and take stock. So I think that's probably the first step.
Yeah, I think you're right. I know for me, I felt paralyzed a lot because I just didn't know what to do. And you have to also consider that when you're going through such a change in your life and you're getting used to a completely new reality, it's emotional. There's a lot of mental stress. There's a lot going on. Then you add finances on top of it. I mean, finances to the normal person is stressful. And then you're adding a completely new life, big changes, throw some children in there too.
Right.
I mean, finances, and I know for me, that was like the last thing I was worried about. I just needed to be okay as a person,
right,
and then start figuring out my finances. But even then, Min, and I was telling you because you had been getting on me for a little while, like we need to talk, let's talk about your finances. And I appreciated that because I was kind of like just not doing anything and just kind of cruising along.
Yeah.
But once I kind of felt used to the new life, single moms, it was like, okay, let's start to make some smart financial decisions.
Right. And so, as people, once they take stock, the next thing is then kind of start looking at the goals, right? Like what do I want, right? What do I really want, right? Not what my husband and I wanted, not what I thought I wanted when I got married, not what I thought I wanted when I had kids, not what I thought I wanted when I was in college, and whatever it is, what that kind of thought was, but what do I want today, right? And once you kind of figure out what you want today, then you just got to work kind of backwards into that, right? But it takes some reflection, right? So take stock first. Then the next thing is okay, let's figure out where do I want to be, right? Whatever that to be is, right? And then kind of work backwards from there. So I always have people kind of go, what do you mean we're not really talking about money today? I thought I hired a financial advisor, right? I said, but really what we're talking about is how you feel about the money. What do you want to do? Where do you want to be, right? And then once you tie all the emotional pieces to it, then you can kind of go, okay, I know I really, truly in my heart, me as a person, I want this. Not this is what I feel like my wife wanted or my husband wanted or whatever, right? Should have, could have, would have, right? And then you can kind of work into a plan, right? And then I think the next step is like educating yourself, right? Is understanding, okay, now that I know where I want to go, well, I've got to educate myself, because you're probably, college doesn't teach you this stuff, high school doesn't teach this stuff, and maybe by some happenstance, your ex-spouse took care of it, right? You know, and that's kind of a thing, right? For most people, right?
Yeah.
So once you kind of get through that education piece for yourself, and now you can make an informed decision on where I want to go, right? The first thing I tell people is when someone passes away, when they get widowed or they get a divorce, like, don't do anything yet, right? Like the first thing is like, oh, I want to buy a house. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that.
A lot of emotional decisions being
Right,
made.
right. I'm going to buy a house because I want to, you know, I want to do this. I'm going to do that. You know, whatever it is, right? And a lot of these emotional decisions, like you're not in the right mind frame to make those decisions today, right? So let's take one step back. Let's kind of peel through the layers, right? And get down to the core of what you want. Let's, you know, then you get the education piece into it. Now we can kind of set out a plan of action, right? And just put one step in front of the other.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. It's don't make any decisions right away.
Right.
Pause. You know, take care of yourself first.
Right.
Set your long-term goals, and I agree with that. That, you know, sometimes it's going to take a little bit of reframing those goals, because you're now in a different chapter of your life, and so the goals you had prior may not be the goals that you had now. I'll tell you that when I was married, my goals were much different. Right now, the things that I want, my priorities have shifted quite a bit.
Right.
So, and I like what you said, set those long-term goals and then make a plan to go backwards. You know, I've heard, for me, I felt this way a lot too. There's a little bit of some, I don't think it's, maybe not fear, but we kind of doubt ourselves. Like, can I really do all this? Is that attainable?
Right.
I know when I met with you for the first time, and my big goal was to buy a home. And I remember you telling me, all right, cool, not a problem. We'll get you that in a couple years. And I'm thinking, no way. How is that possible? Is there some misconceptions that some of these goals are harder to attain than they really are?
You know, every goal is attainable as long as you believe it, right? And I know, look, my wife gets on me all the time about this. She's like, you just have these like crazy ideas. Like, what is going on in your brain, right? And I was like, I don't know. I think we can do it, right? I think we can do it, right? And so once I kind of think we can do it, then I just kind of like push to do it. And sometimes it works great. Sometimes it works okay. Sometimes it doesn't work at all. That's okay. But there is a lot of misconception on, is the goal attainable? Because, you know, a lot of people, they think they need to have $1 billion to retire.
That was my next question.
Right. You know, I mean, look, right now, whatever income you make, right, you can, all you have to do is replicate the current income, right? If you're happy, and obviously if you're happy with the current income, right? We're not always truly happy, but we are comfortable, we feel good, we're where we're at, and all you have to do is replicate that income. And to replicate that income, here's the goal for retirement. It's super simple. The formula is basic. What you take home minus your mortgage payment, that's your retirement goal. That's it. Yeah. Don't make it any harder than that.
Right. Where would you say, in priority wise, when you're sitting down for the first time with these newly, singled women or just lost somebody, where is retirement though on the priority list? Because I know for me that seems so far out, and it's like this huge mountain that is almost too daunting to climb. Where does that in line with maybe some other priorities, investing, saving, maybe you're looking to buy a home, for example?
Retirement's probably always priority number one. Why is it always priority number one? Because everything else falls in line with it, right? Owning a home is retirement, right? That is just retirement, right? Whether you own it outright or you have a mortgage or whatever, but buying a house is a part of your retirement plan, right? You can't retire without a house, right?
Asset.
Right. Yeah, you can use it in reverse mortgage. You can do whatever you want, right, with it as a asset. Investing is not really a goal. It's actually a tactic of the retirement goal. It's a tactic.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's a way to get there, right? It's like
Certainly.
if you go, I want to pack on 5 pounds of muscle, right? Well, going to work out is not a goal.
Yeah.
Packing on 5 pounds is getting a goal,
Yeah.
is the goal,
Yeah.
right? It's a means to get there, right? When most people think investing is a goal, it's not a goal. It's just a means to get there, right? And so saving, all that stuff, right? And retirement is a even bigger priority than your kid's education. Now, I'm going to offend some people here.
No, they're on their own.
I'm going to offend some people who are listening to this and go, what do you mean? My kid's education? No. Look, you can get a loan for education all day long.
Well, and that's a whole nother story if we even need to send our kids to college anyways.
Right. But you do not need to get a loan.
Right.
You cannot get a loan for retirement. It's not possible, right? Don't walk up to Bank of America and turn 65 and go, hey guys, I need a couple $100,000 to retire. I'm a little short. They're not going to give you a loan for that, right? But you send in the 18-year-old fresh-faced kid and go, I'm going to go to Dartmouth.
Yeah.
Can I get $200,000? They'll go, yeah, sure. Here you go.
Yeah. Okay. So another question for you. Back to that stat that I shared earlier, when women's household income drops anywhere between 20 to 40% within the first year post-divorce. What would you say to somebody, client that comes in and is like, man, I want to do all these things, but I don't make that much money. Maybe they're a teacher and their income is fairly fixed. There's a ceiling on it. I know that there has actually been, I think it was Dave Ramsey. I randomly saw a video where he was talking about how teachers really make they retire better than a lot of other professions. How is that possible? If you're limited on resources, how can you still make that work for you?
So because TRS is paying about 80% of your salary, right? So whatever you made when you retire, you're going to make about 80% of it, at least in Texas, right? I mean, I don't know about other states. I don't deal with a lot of teachers outside of Texas.
Well, that's not, they're getting TRS regardless. So I'm talking about as like their personal investing choices.
Well,
or financial choices.
The TRS is the first place, though, because it's the biggest source of income, right?
Sure.
And if it covers 80% of what you make now, then there's only 20% to make up. And that 20% is made up through 403Bs or outside investing, right? But how many people are going to have 80% of their income when they retire if they did nothing?
Okay.
So imagine if I were a teacher and I did nothing to plan for retirement. But I just tried TRS, I'm getting 80% of what I made. And technically, my house is paid off at that point. So then the money I was paying towards my house, I no longer need. So I'm really living off what I live off now.
Yeah.
But as you think about adults who are not in that situation and they retire on just Social Security is about 40% of what you make. Yeah. So you're going to retire and then all of a sudden you're going to go from, 100 to 40, right? And you're going to go, oh my gosh, you didn't plan. Right. Whereas if teachers didn't plan, they're going to get the 80.
So if you're one of those people who you feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck, is it still possible? Are there still ways to set yourself up for success in the future? Do you have to have a lot of money?
No.
Or a large income?
I think it starts with one simple thing, as basic as it can get, budgeting. Yeah. The second thing I would say is just natural frugality, right? I have clients who retired multimillionaires and probably haven't made more than $80,000 or $90,000 in their entire life. But why? They started early. First time they hit the plant at 18 years old, they were socking away whatever the 401k told them to sock away. And by the time they hit, 55, they're like, I'm ready to retire with a couple $1,000,000.
Right.
Right. Because they started when they're young. Now, let's say you were in a marriage where your husband didn't plan that well, or you and your husband didn't plan that well, and now you find yourself newly singled in your 30s and 40s, right? Is it too late to start? No, but it's just going to take a little bit more elbow grease, a little more frugality to get to where you need, right?
Yeah.
Think about so much wasted dollars that we spend in the world today.
Yeah.
I was very humbled. One time I was at lunch. I was at a client's office. I was meeting with clients, and the owner walks in. He goes, "Hey, man." He goes, "You want to catch up?" I said, "Yeah, sure, we'll catch up, man." And then he goes, "Hold on one second." He walks into his wherever he's at and walks out. And he's got a little Tupperware thing, And he goes, my wife made pasta last night. Let me heat this up. He's eating his lunch, right? And I'm sitting there in the same break room with his employees that they've got DoorDash and their Starbucks cups and everything else. And I'm sitting there watching this dude that's got, obviously, a great running business, and all that other stuff, sitting there eating this piece of pasta while everybody is eating DoorDash.
Yeah.
And it's such a minuscule,
seems small in the moment.
Tiny habit.
Tiny habits.
Tiny habit. So tiny, right?
That they just compound over time.
Just kind of multiply over time, right? And whether it's, you can talk to anybody who talks about the tiny habits. I was listening to something about Kobe Bryant going, if you wake up at 4 a.m., I can work out 3 or 4 times. 3 or 4 times a day. Whereas the guy who wakes up at 8 or 9, he can only work out twice. So then you take that tiny little habit that I woke up a few hours earlier than he did, and you multiply it over years, and there's no way he's going to catch up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think that goes back to what you were saying earlier about just looking at what you have. Look at your situation. I know, gosh, there were so many random subscriptions that I was paying for that I had no idea what they were for. All these little recurring bills. Right now, I mean, subscription, the subscription economy is running rampant right now, and that's what they love to do is get you on these recurring memberships. And so I think that alone, just looking through those, you might be able to shore up an extra $1 or $2 a month.
Yeah.
You put that, towards investment.
Yeah.
That'll compound over time, right?
Yeah. Over time, you'll definitely get to your goal.
Cut the Starbucks.
I joke. I follow this other financial firm called Elevest, and they go, drink the freaking latte, right? I agree with that. Yes, drink the freaking latte, but not every day.
Yeah, or pick and choose. You don't have to be, rip yourself of all the joy in life, but just pick and choose. Is that Starbucks your one treat? Then go for it. Have it.
Yeah.
But you don't need the Starbucks and then go get the lunch and then go get your dinner, bought out or.
Yeah.
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 So step number 1, pause, take a look at your situation, get a budget. Set your goals, work backwards. Retirement is key.
Yep.
What other piece of advice do you have for newly divorced or widowed women who are really gaining financial independence for the first time, possibly for the first time?
I think education is key. CPAs, financial advisors, right? Please stop watching TikToks and YouTubes.
FinTalk?
Even though we're going to be on YouTube on this one, right? But this is not real advice, right? My disclosure will tell you this is not advice. This is just 2 people talking about stuff, right? Because advice is personalized, right? What's right for you isn't right for somebody else, right? There's no one size fits all, right? I love to say there is, but there isn't, right? So as people are out there and they're thinking, okay, what do I need to do? Educate yourselves on all the different options. And I think the challenge, and I shared this with people, that the challenge that women have in general, and people go, why is there such a disparity with understanding investments or having investments with women versus men? It's really straightforward, right? Imagine you are a woman with a very, high-powered career, and you're in your 40s and 50s, maybe you're in your mid-late 30s, and the chances are your mom is not a high-income earner. Now, there is a small chance, but the chances are she was not what is she going to be, 60 or 70 years old today?
Yeah.
60 or 70 years old today. And think about it. She's 67 years old today. So when she was in the prime of her career in the 60s and 70s, what were most women doing?
Being housewives.
Housewives, right? Or secretaries.
Moms, secretaries.
Right.
Teachers.
Right. Now, I didn't say that all are. Please do not take that. Don't cancel Minvo, okay, for that comment, okay? Don't cancel me.
We understand the history of the workforce and females.
So then as you get to that point, and then now you're a financially independent 40-year-old woman, and you're not 40, but if you were 40, if you were 40.
Pump the brakes there.
If you were 40, right, then who do you go call for your advice? You call your mom, and what will she tell you? I don't know. Savings.
Call your dad.
Savings and loans or CDs. You may say call your dad, but at this point, actually, your dad could have passed.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Given the age situation. The other part is ask your dad is probably maybe older and a little bit more out of touch.
Sure.
Right? Because he's made his money. And so now what do? You're kind of limited to that kind of basic information that your mom will tell you. Buy a CD, put it in savings, like save your money, pay your debts off, right? That's kind of the general advice, right? She's not going, hey, maybe you should consider putting money in the S&P 500, or you should consider, buying municipal bonds because they're tax free, or hey, have you thought about an HSA because it's tax deductible? Have you thought about a Roth IRA or a mega Roth IRA? She's not giving that information. Right? Because she probably doesn't know that information.
Yeah. And I think it's such a male dominated field too, the industry.
Exactly.
Financial advisor specifically. Right. And I think it could be a little bit maybe not overwhelming, but I think intimidating might be the word.
Absolutely.
For a woman, a female, to really trust somebody, not take advantage or feel vulnerable in that situation.
Yeah, who wants to walk into a room full of people that know more than you do about any subject, right? It could be they know more about food than you do, right? Right, they're talking about, I don't know, foams and whatever fancy chefs talk about, right? And I'm like, I don't know how to make a foam. Can I just get a piece of chicken?
Right.
I think it's intimidating to walk into a room where people they know that they know more than you do.
Sure.
Right. So that's where the education piece comes in. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we kind of start to wrap up, you mentioned education being key. Where beyond education, where does something like coaching or accountability come into play? Because we can take in information and learn all day long, but we need to be able to take action, and we need accountability as well.
So accountability and coaching is probably within yourself, and first, but secondly, a professional, right? Whether it's your CPA, your financial advisor, or your team of people, right? Because at the end of the day, yes, take in the information, but you can be educated you want if you don't have a plan in place and a goal in place. So start with the plan, then with the goal. And then once I educate myself on these tactics and go, which ones work for me, right? And that's where you can kind of work with a team, whether, again, CPA, financial advisor, attorney, combination of all three, so that you can go, okay, these are the things I really want, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Any final piece of advice? Any thoughts you want to end on?
Here's one thing I always tell people: be wary about. Be wary of the hungry person. What I mean by this is there are lots of my comrades that are starting this industry, which is a great financial services industry. But if they figured out that you just got divorced or came into a lump sum of money and go, ooh, you need to buy this and open this account and buy this and, lock away your money and do that and do that and do that, those are some red flags, right? If they're not going to sit there and consult with you and kind of walk through, hey, let's take a step back. Let's look at the goals.
Right.
Hey,
money aside.
Yeah, money aside. Let's talk about the goals. Let's talk about your priorities. Let's talk about your budget. Let's go through all these things, right? And let's make some simple decisions, right? Yep. What are simple decisions? Today's most people go, in 2024, what's the best trade? The easiest trade in 2024, the best advice you can get right now, cash money. Take your money and open a money market. Get 5%. Right. For the love of Yahweh, God, Allah, Buddha, somebody, open a money market.
Open a money market.
Because it's liquid, it's available, it's very low risk, it's simple. That's a simple trade, right? To start with for most people. So there's where I would go. But watch out for the red flags.
Okay, great advice. Watch out for red flags. Open a money market account today.
Yes.
Thank you, man. And where can listeners find more information about you and Verus Financial Group?
On our website, verusfinancial.us.
Awesome.